why you need to scratch below the surface. When we dig a little bit deeper, when we find out what's truly going on, we get a much clearer picture. We can strip away the assumptions, we can strip away the expectations and see it for what it really is. This counts for people, for organizations, for relationships, connections, whatever it may be, health and well-being too. I'm reminded of a story. Back in my late teens and early 20s, I was part of my country's leading sprint group. We had 6 of the top 8 sprinters in the country, and we used to train together every day and work really hard to push ourselves to be better than we could be. Early in the season, after the hard winter training period, our coach used to make us train on a Saturday morning before racing on the Saturday afternoon. We'd do a really hard session, then have 2 or 3 hours to recover before heading back to the track later that afternoon to race. Now, despite the fact that we were in really good shape and we were moving quickly, we used to struggle in those races. And our competition used to wonder what was going on. They used to go, we know these guys train hard, why aren't they performing better? They didn't know that we were training earlier that morning. They didn't know that we were heavily fatigued and we weren't at our best. Later on in the season, our coach used to strip away those Saturday morning training sessions. And all of a sudden, our performance went through the roof. It's as though we'd had a massive exponential growth curve, all because we weren't fatigued from earlier that day. The people that were beating us earlier in the season were suddenly 6, 7, 8 meters behind us because we were racing fresh. They didn't know this. They didn't scratch below the surface. They didn't discover why it was we were doing what we were doing. They just saw it at face value and they missed. They then got complacent and they didn't push themselves as hard, thinking we can beat these guys. They're not the best anymore, right? And it just shows you the importance of scratching below the surface, of delving a little bit deeper and finding out what's truly going on with someone. What we see on the surface, the perceived success, the perceived wealth, the perceived abundance that we see on the surface isn't always the case. It's the same with the perceived struggle, the perceived frustration that we see on the surface isn't always the case either. Delve a little bit deeper, push a little bit harder, discover what is truly going on so you can then serve people so much better. You can then target what their pain points are and really help them to break through and to reach new levels of epicness.